and welcome to this video. This week in the UK has been Cystic Fibrosis week, and so I thought I would just make a video about PORT-A-CATH. So I've asked my friends and my family if they had any questions that I can answer. I've asked my friends with CF, some of them have PORTs, some of them don't have PORTs, and I asked my mum and dad what their questions were for the nurses before I got my PORT. I've made a list and I'm just gonna talk about it and answer some questions. So the first one is, what is a PORT? It is a medical device that is inserted under the skin. It's basically a metal ring with a silicone like spongy bit in the middle, and that is connected to a catheter, which is basically just a tube inside your vein that then goes into your heart, and then it's used for drugs and vein access when you can't have any access to veins in your hands and arms. So next is, why did I have one and how did I decide? It was in July of 2018 that PORTs were first mentioned to me by my consultant. I had gone into hospital because my oxygen stats had dropped and I needed an urgent CT scan with contrast dye. For this dye you need a specific size cannula which is larger than like the average cannula and the average like blood test needle. The nurses and the doctors and consultants and everyone tried 16 times to get this cannula into me, and it was the most like horrendous thing I've ever experienced. It was absolutely awful. I was like crying and shaking. They even had to use one of those like infrared scanner things that you hover over your arm and it shows you where the veins are inside your arm, and that still didn't even work. So I got my PORT on the 31st of October of 2018. Another question was there like a psychological barrier to you getting something medically permanently like in you? For me, I suppose it was a little bit of a barrier, and just knowing that it was like the next step in my CF journey, if that makes sense. We all know CF is like a progressive illness, and it's like getting a PORT is like the next step to being like a little bit more ill than you used to be. I do get a little bit creeped out sometimes knowing that there is something under my skin. It is a bit weird, but I knew that getting a PORT was like needed, it was necessary. So whatever like psychological impacts I felt, like the benefits of a PORT would have outweighed it. So the insertion process was quite traumatic. I was sedated very lightly. Some people have general anaesthetic, which I personally would have preferred. Under the light sedation I could feel everything. Skip this bit if you're squeamish, but I could feel them cutting into my skin. I could feel them like putting the PORT into my skin. I could feel them stitching me up. I could feel the blood running down my neck. It was like, I couldn't feel pain, but I could feel those sensations. I had to have like the sterile sheet over your face, so it was like, it was quite claustrophobic, so I would have preferred to have been asleep. The next question I got was, where can it go? Did you choose your placement? And how does the placement affect me? It can go in your like chest area or down the side, like just under your armpit, or in these parts of your arms. I got mine here. I don't actually know if you can see it. So that's where mine is. I think I vaguely got to choose my placement. I knew that I definitely wanted on my chest, because if I got it here, I know that you can't wear a bra when it's accessed. If it's in your arm, I just thought like, what's really the difference between a PICC line and then a PORT? I think it's like easier to like bang it and injure it if it's on your arms, so I just chose my chest. I don't remember choosing which side of my chest. I just remember knowing that it needed to be like further this way so it wouldn't be in the way of my bra strap. The doctor that did it just kind of like looked at me and went, okay, I'm gonna put it there, is that okay with you? And I was like, yeah, I suppose so. Straight after the operation, it was quite sore. You couldn't really move your arm very much, and it was like painful to cough. But after a couple of days, that did start to like wear down. It's better to like take the painkillers rather than just brave it and say, nah, I'm good, I don't need painkillers, because then when you get to doing your physio and coughing, if you haven't taken any painkillers, it bloody hurts. When you're recovering from your PORT operation, wearing a seatbelt over it is really painful. When I first got mine done and it was like recovering when I would drive, I had like a little pillow that I would put just underneath my seatbelt, so bear that in mind. Also, during recovery, I got my port on my right hand side and I'm right-handed, so a couple of things that I would transfer to my left hand side to do, for example, like filling the kettle up and pouring like mugs of tea, because that's like a heavier thing that you're lifting, so it was more comfortable for me to like switch arms to do that when it was recovering, and also I still do it now when I'm accessed. The next question is, does it hurt once it's healed? Is it noticeable and can I feel it? It doesn't hurt at all now. I can like pat it and things. Sometimes when I hug people, it can be a bit painful if they're like pressing on it. Me and my brother fight sometimes, and sometimes he punches me in the port by accident, but it really hurts. Is it noticeable? It is noticeable. You can see the lump where the actual port is and the scar just here, and then you can see the tube inside my vein. I don't think you can see it very well on camera. You can feel it as well, it's like hard. So I have a little scar there where they went in for the tube, and a scar here, and that's the port there. So it is noticeable, but I don't fully mind that. The scar has faded a lot. I've never had a complete stranger ask me about it. I've had some of my friends that I don't talk to like often ask me like what it is. Sometimes I tell them, oh, it's just a medical device. One time I told them that I was stabbed. I don't know why. I was like, oh yeah, I got stabbed. Can I feel it? Not really. Sometimes when I'm lying on my side, I can sort of feel it a little bit, but it's not painful and it doesn't really bother me. I can't feel it really. I can feel it like when I touch it. Obviously I can feel the tube inside my vein, but just like I can't really feel it. It needs to be flushed every 4 to 6 weeks, and what that means is basically it gets access and it gets saline and heparin squeezed through it. But the reason why it's called a flush is because you have to like pulsate the syringe, and what the pulsing does is like create turbulence inside the port, so that if there are if there are any blood clots or anything starting to form inside the port, the turbulence and the flushing motion like flushes it all out so that it doesn't get any blood clots. What's the longest you can go without a flush, and what are the risks of not having it flushed? When my nurse was here at the beginning of lockdown to flush my port, and she said that they won't want to leave it any longer than 8 weeks to flush it. So it should be between 4 to 6 weeks, but my centre anyway won't leave it any longer than 8 weeks. The risks of not flushing your port is mainly blood clots. If you do get blood clots in your port, and then the next time you use it, that blood clot can dislodge from inside the port or the catheter, and it can go into your heart. And we all know if you get a blood clot in your heart, you are very likely to have a heart attack. Even if it doesn't go into your heart, you could get a blood clot in your brain, your legs, you know, blood clots are bad. So we don't want that. That's why we flush every 4 to 6 weeks. The next question is, how is it accessed and does it hurt? Accessing a port is just taking a needle and putting it in there. So I usually use either a 1/2 inch or a 1/4 inch needle size, or not me, obviously, nurses. It's a sterile procedure to access ports. You have to like grip hold of it either side and then get your needle and just like put it in there all the way until you hear the little like click of it hitting the metal at the back of your port, which I must say was odd the first time I heard that.
Sharp scratch.
Mm-hmm. It does hurt getting it accessed because it's a needle being put into your skin. It's no more painful than a blood test or a cannula, I wouldn't say. And also as time goes by and the more it is accessed, the more scar tissue builds up over the top of it. So over time, you'll stop feeling it completely. If you really don't like the pain, you can have numbing cream or that numbing spray just to numb it briefly. I will say that when I first got my port accessed for IV antibiotics and not just to get it flushed, my dad was with me and he actually thought the nurse like cut it open here to take it out to access it, which I actually never had thought as like a thing people would think, if that makes sense. Once you have your port inserted, it stays completely under your skin, nothing like comes out or anything. So yeah, accessing is just a needle going in. So once you have your port accessed for a longer period of time, instead of just like to have it flushed or blood taken out, you can't get it wet at all. Showering can be quite difficult. How I wash when I have my port access is making the shower head waist height so that it's not spraying water directly onto my port, and then like if I need like the water like above waist height, I just kind of like cup the water and wash and stuff. Washing your hair when you have an accessed port is really, really difficult. If I'm doing home IVs, I will get my mum to wash my hair leaning over the bathtub. Otherwise, when it's not accessed, you know, you can get it wet completely and it's not a problem. It's only when it's accessed. And the reason why you can't get it wet when it's accessed is because of the risk of infection. And if you get your port infected, that infection goes into your bloodstream, and mainly if you have an infection in your blood, you can get sepsis, and obviously that can be fatal. So we really don't want infection in our ports. What sort of drugs is used and what is your port actually used for? So I've already mentioned that I have my port access when I have IV antibiotics, so that is fosfomycin and tobramycin, and then we've got saline and heparin for the flushes, and also ports can be used for blood tests. You push a little tiny bit of saline in to make sure that it's actually working and your needle's in the correct place. And then you just draw the syringe out and it bleeds back into the syringe. Apparently some centres don't allow ports to be used for blood tests, and I'm not actually too sure why that is. I mean, I know that if you're using those blood tests to check like tobramycin levels, if you're on IV tobramycin, then obviously that's going to be like affected because that's where the tobramycin goes in. But your regular blood tests for your regular levels and things, I feel like there's no reason why they can't be taken out of your port, but you know, I don't make the rules, do I? I don't think there's really anything that you can't have through a port. So another question is, how long can it last? Ports usually last for about 10 years. Obviously if they fail before the 10 years, then you need to get them replaced. But if everything goes well and your port lasts 10 years, then that's great, and it can just be replaced after 10 years and you can just carry on like normal. Reasons for the need to replace ports prematurely is if they stop bleeding back in some centres, or blood clot or infection, or if it stops flushing and it's like blocked and you can't flush it, then you'll need a new one. But yeah, they should last around 10 years. And then the last question I have is, do I regret it? I have like two answers for this question. One is like, no, of course I don't regret it at all. It's so much easier for vein access. You know, if I need IV antibiotics, I literally just go and one needle and I'm accessed for 2 weeks, instead of 20 attempts for a cannula and then needing the line team to come and put a PICC line in as well. That's just so much like faff and pain. I mean, yeah, the operation to put it in wasn't nice at all, but that was a one-time thing. Yeah, I'm really glad I have it. On the other hand, I got some Kevy now, so I don't know if I'm gonna need IV antibiotics less, and then if I do need them less, then it's like, well, why do I have a port if I don't need antibiotics as often? For like blood tests and everything, it's so much easier having a port, so no, I don't regret it. Some of the things that I haven't mentioned previously in the video, I suppose one of the cons of having a port is travelling to the hospital to get it flushed every month. My hospital is at least an hour away, and usually it takes an extra half hour to park as well, and so to go there just for like a 20-minute port flush is very annoying when I have to like take the day off work just for a 20-minute flush. It is annoying, but at the moment with Corona, my nurse has been coming to my house to flush it, which has been really nice. So I hope I have answered all of your questions. If you do have any more questions that I haven't answered, please leave me a comment or a message me on Instagram or anything, and I will try and answer it for you. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and I might see you in another video. Bye!